the Manchester Community School Board meeting. To begin, it's a public hearing for the join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Because there's some people joining us electronically, we're going to do a roll call. Mr. Shaw?
Here.
Mr. Epstein?
He's just getting on, so.
Okay. Mr. Hensley?
Here.
Mr. Kirkland?
Here.
Mr. Bedke?
Here.
Mr. Flack?
Here.
And I'm Ruth Ayers, also present. Are there any emergency additions or deletions?
There are not.
Discussion and information, the MCS Teacher Collective Bargaining Agreement.
Okay. I am going to go through the summary of the items that were discussed and everything that was changed in the contract. Mr. Self, can you put that tentative agreement summary? I had sent that to you.
Yeah.
All
maybe.
board members have that in front of them. I will go ahead and start going through that, and we will put that up on the screen. The entire contract will be posted on the website along with anything else from the packet that will be coming out today to you. So that will be available for anyone in the public to view as well. If you look at your sheet in front of you, Article number 3, Section C, this language was discussed, and there were no changes in personal days in the contract. Number 2, which was Article 4, Section A, talking about insurance premiums, there was a 1% increase for teachers. There has not been any increases over the last few years, and we were at the point we felt like we needed to pass that on. All of the employees' contributions there are listed. And actually, that's pretty good because a lot of school corporations have had a pretty big hit with insurance, so we're really pleased with where we're at. Number 3, Article 6, Section A, which is salary. This just lists last year's teacher salary range as $36,200 for the beginning teacher pay, up to $67,000 for the top of the scale. Number 4, which is also Article 6, on extracurricular pay. I am not going to read all of that for you, but I'm going to give you the short version of it. The ECA pay increase will be based on the new base salary of $36,800. Beginning next year's contract, well, actually, let me back up here a little bit. The language that has to go in here is that it was not bargained, but the ECA stipends will be paid in 2 equal installments, with the exception of those that are getting paid for year-round duties, such as a department head or something along those lines. The pay will be at the beginning of that term that they're doing and the end. So there'll be 2 times pay stipend. An in-depth review of the ECA schedule will be completed with a committee on both sides. So we will reconvene. And if you look at the language that was actually presented to the teachers, which is what the board was asking for. The only thing that changed is what the very big end of that pay schedule, which is when MTA and MCS will meet to consider the situation if we have anything like we had last spring where we had to cancel sports. Now, with that said, because next year we'll be starting a stipend, instead of including it in their salary, we can hold off on signing contracts till the beginning of each season, sports season. So we'd have a little bit more control over what happens and we can sit down and have that conversation, so. Number 5, Article 6, Section C1, which is credit reimbursement. The only thing that was added was other content areas approved by the superintendent. So if they're taking classes, there could be other ones that would benefit MCS. And so we wanted to make sure that language was in there. Then we got into Article 6, Section D, which was new teacher salary. And the new teachers will enter at a salary determined by the superintendent upon the approval of the board. And the other language that was added was that new teachers may be placed at no more than one level higher on the pay scale than a teacher with similar experience and education and will not exceed the top of the scale.
And that was just moved, to be fair.
Yes.
It's not new language, it just was moved to this section, which made more sense because that's what they talked
Sure.
about there.
Right. Thank you for jumping in.
Sorry.
Number 7, Appendix A, which is the compensation model. The increase for each step would be $600 to the base pay, and then each teacher advances one step on the pay scale. And if you look down on the letter A down there, the following, it is the compensation model has to have 2 factors, experience and evaluation, which are in there at 25 and 75%. Academic need was used this year as a means to increase that base salary by $600, and it was to retain our teachers. B says that any teacher that is at the very top of the scale, instead of them moving up, they get a stipend as opposed to more money, so they'll get a $2,000 stipend this year.
Sorry, 400, remember some of that goes on their base. 600 is actually part of their base, 1,400 is the stipend, because the salary schedule.
Yeah, it's not written that way though.
I don't, that's not the edited one, sorry, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, that's what I thought it was, and it wasn't written that way, so I think she just made a mistake on that. So we'll make sure, did anybody check to see if in the contract it was correct that way? We'll check.
Line through, then 2,000 is after it, so.
Yeah,
that was a question.
the total amount was 2,000, but yes, you're correct. Okay. Let's see, we have letter C for the 2021 school year only. Teachers newly hired at the 1920 row A, base salary will move in the same row to the 2021 row A base salary. So they're not moving up a level, they will stay at the same level and get a $600 base pay raise. Okay, and the last, or a couple major things here, if any teacher is found to be ineffective or needs improvement, they are not eligible to transition onto the 2021 salary schedule. And if they found that any of those were, then that money that would be used for those salaries would be distributed equally among all of the teachers that were effective or highly effective. And that was both F and H kind of together. The very last item was the removal of the attendance stipend of $500. We didn't think with COVID going on that would be a good thing to encourage people to come to school when they're sick. So that was removed from the contract.
Did you touch point E?
Point E,
Deficit financing?
deficit
That's already
finance.
been there. I don't know why that word "and" was even highlighted in red, because unless that was changed and I didn't see it, that line has been there.
Yeah, it's been there. I think she just, really, Susan went through and did a nice job helping us clean up some legal language there, just so the word "and" was used or inserted.
Well, what's that sentence mean?
It means if we don't have enough money, effectively, they can take money back off of our base.
Okay.
Pretty much, yep. And that's it. Anybody have any questions?
Right there too, item D, is that in there for any particular reason? I don't see a change to it.
D.
Just above that E that we were talking about.
Are you still on salaries? The ECA salaries are
Yeah,
not included
yeah.
in the teacher's salary cap?
Is that a change? I don't know why it's
No,
here.
I think Susan copied and pasted this whole
Oh,
section
okay.
and then made the changes in red.
I gotcha.
That were actually changes.
Right. So you should just be looking at the red is really.
So can you clarify again what the deal is with the $2,000 or 400 plus 16? I didn't quite catch.
You mean for a B?
Yes.
Yeah, if they're at the top of the scale, they're gonna get that base raise, which was 600. And the rest of that 2,000 that every teacher's getting would be in a stipend because they're at the very top of the scale. Otherwise, your scale's just gonna keep going and going and going. At some point, you gotta top out.
So they'll be at,
So is the contract correct?
So-
We're gonna check and make sure it is before you.
Yes,
vote
the
on it.
stipend would be 1,400.
Yes.
But that's because they're moving from row W of last year's contract to this year's contract, and that has $600 increase on it.
okay.
already.
But there's not two $600 increases is my question, yeah.
It's just you have to clarify, because 600 is going to their base, and the other 1,400 is just being paid as a separate stipend.
But there shouldn't really have been any change to the language, I wouldn't think. It's still 1,400, right?
The stipend is still, again, I think that was just a mistake the first time.
Okay.
And it had been corrected on some version. I know
think
Heidi
it
Miller
is.
put one,
It's
I don't
just-
know.
It is correct on the full
Yeah.
contract that was sent, it says the stipend of 1,400.
Any hearing of patrons?
I still have a few questions, actually.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is the item 6, Article 6, what's the change there that the superintendent has to approve the salary? Is that, what was it?
So when we started the salary schedule back a few years ago, when Irv allowed that, we just had to put language in as to how we were going to place someone on that schedule. It's easy if you've been here, you just move up a level, but what do we do for somebody coming from another school? So we had written in language a while back. That used to be down in the Exhibit A, where the actual salary schedule is, and we just moved it, and I suppose it's just cleaner to put it up where new teacher salary.
Okay, so that's
It
not,
was just literally moved.
okay, no change, just to move, okay. And under the ECA language there, the last sentence says MTA and MCS. Is MCS meaning administration, board? Who is MCS?
Well, if you're committee, you're a negotiating committee, and so I believe you sent some administrators and would sit down with teachers and just kind of work through it.
I mean, probably the same people that are in this contract, except I'm sure they would be open to hearing what, Eric Stream has to say, or someone else has to say about the situation at that time.
When you say on item 4, Article 6, Section B on the extracurricular or pay schedule. But it says that you're gonna do a committee, be formed to conduct an in-depth review of the ECA schedule. Is that the pay schedule? Or are you talking about the season?
The pay schedule is what, that was a request from, I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit, MTA.
So, members have asked in the past anyway, but basically, I know that it would be hard for the average person to give a description of what each position does, what each club sponsor or coach does, because it's obviously not very clear just on the title alone. So, in order to help, say we were to close and had to make decisions, hard decisions about even pay, just going back through it with the fine-tooth comb, having members, both parties talk about the positions, what's involved. Frankly, we have positions in there that we've left on the salary schedule, but we haven't filled in years. There's other positions that we have now that aren't on there that should be getting paid, so we could probably reallocate some of the money just to clean it up. I mean, most schools do this, and we've done this at least, I don't know, Jeremy, every about 4 or 5 years probably.
Usually every few years.
Yeah, it's about every 4 or 5. We've gone back, revisit the schedule, just make sure that allocations are where they need to be with ever-changing dynamics with extracurriculars. We also talked about, looking at job descriptions for each of those and kind of cleaning that up and giving us some more defined starts and stops and those type of things, which is really hard to do in some of those cases. And we know there's a lot of work being done year-round in a lot of these ECAs. So there's just a lot of language things that we want to work through with MTA and try to clean this up and make it even better.
Thank you. Do teachers go from one base to the next just each year until they're maxed out?
I mean, as long as they're not needs improvement or ineffective when they are rated. We created a salary schedule with the presumption that you move from one level to the next until they max out.
So if they're ineffective, they don't move, they stay.
They're not allowed to
flat?
legally.
That's correct.
So on F on the back page, so if they're ineffective, they don't get the $600 bump. So they stay on the 2019-2020 pay scale. Let's say they're on a PIP or whatever and they improve, and then they do bump, so would they get a $1,200 raise that next year? Would they bump up to the 2021?
Might have to be bargained. I don't know legally what you can and can't do because they're stuck on a salary schedule that won't even be in our contract.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
know,
That's my point.
presuming that if they're effective or highly effective, they can move then not only to the 2021-2022 salary schedule, but then also the level on that. I actually don't know about that.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's probably something we have to negotiate in the next year's contract and see how that all.
I mean, I would say more years than not, we've had 0 teachers in the bargaining unit that were, did not qualify for the raise. I can't say if that's true this year. We're not, not completely public knowledge to know everyone's ratings.
We
So.
don't have anybody this year.
So that language is just a requirement because ERB wants to see what you're going to do for those teachers that aren't effective or highly effective.
Correct.
Hopefully, we're gonna develop them.
And typically we do, when we see there's an issue, a lot of times that shows up in the first semester, and so you're making provisions and giving them support in areas through a plan. They develop a plan and they work on helping that teacher improve. And many times they do. So.
Is there a need for more clarification from the board?
Obviously, you're here, so the MTOA is okay with this?
Yes, this is our tentative agreement.
And financially, we're able to support this.
Correct, with the bond that we're getting, yes.
So we're able to support it for the next year.
We should be able to,
Was there, how many hours a day are the teachers contracted to?
7.5.
So, yeah, I just get here really early, so it didn't seem like enough, but yes, that's actually the contract time.
There's never enough hours in the day, is there?
So that's not gonna be,
And actually, that's not something that we can bargain anyways. Hours are not something, those are discussable, but they're not bargainable. We're under all these parameters from ERB, so.
so the contract doesn't mention that, or?
No, I mean, we're not allowed to,
Well, the contract does say,
it mentions it, but we're not
7.5
allowed
hours.
to bargain it in the contract. It does
180
list,
183 days, 7.5 hours.
yeah,
How many days?
83.
180 student days. We have 3 days that have been used for professional development or preparing or grading or whatever the case. Teacher days, teacher work days.
Just curious, teachers do get paid the same for an e-learning day.
Yes.
It's a day of work, just like
Okay.
anything else.
I looked at and I did have a question. On the personal days, they're allowed to build those up, and this is time off, and we're talking about the contract, but I'm concerned with COVID. Could you just briefly explain what happens if somebody gets quarantined? Are they using their personal days, or are we paying them?
Teachers, actually, well, anybody gets the 80 hours, so it gets 2 weeks of any time that they're off. But we have, in the discussion, we have actually agreed upon if they can, work from home and provide the same high-quality instruction from there through Zoom with a sub in the classroom, they are getting paid. So, yes.
Thank you.
They're getting paid without taking personal day.
Correct, yes.
Mr. Esposito or Mr. Flack, do you have anything?
No, I'm fine, everything looks straightforward to me, looks good, I can agree with come to an agreement. Same thing, I really appreciated working and, being part of the process. MTA did a great job, and I think our admin team did a great job coming to where we are today. And I appreciate your questions as well, but we're good.
Great. And just for the record later, Mr. Esposito, you were still coming in on Zoom when we were doing the roll call, so are you present?
Same here.
Kind of. No, I'm very present.
Are there any more clarifying questions from the board?
I just had one question of an educational nature. What, is it the typical order to approve contracts in this fashion? Administration, superintendent, and then the teacher's contract? Is that normal for education?
Usually teacher contracts go first, this bargaining, and that determines what the pay will be for any classified staff or administrators. And then we bring that to the board, which is actually on the agenda.
Thank you.
So when will we do the administrator raises?
We're bringing it to the board, it'll be in your packet today when it comes out, what our recommendations are. And we had already presented that to you, I did in executive session.
Yeah, we extended their, Go ahead and ask your question.
No, it wasn't a question, comment, so.
He made a comment that we'd already extended their contracts,
We
which we,
extended their contract, but they're still getting paid the same as they were last year.
so if we
would
approve
be
this,
rewriting contracts and changing their pay if you approve a pay raise for those.
right, so if we approve a pay raise Tuesday night, it goes all the way back till June or July retroactively.
Right, right.
That answer it?
No, I just focus on process, you know, and we approve extensions, then we do this contract, then we're gonna go back and approve, my mind runs through process.
I know, and it's typical that way in education, just because we're really dependent on, what the Teachers Association does. And so we always, in education, we've always held off, at least any place I've ever been, I think it's the same process for most school corporations, is, they wait to see what the teachers bargain and they base whatever that percentage is, and that's when they decide what they're gonna give for classified and administrators. You wouldn't wanna give administrators a 5% raise, then you turn around and give teachers a 2, so it's just kinda like, we bargain that first, and that's a starting point.
Seems very backwards, but it's an Indiana problem.
Yes, it
Because
is.
of the timeline, we're not legally even allowed to bargain until this date, have to be done by this date, so yes, we've been working.
Well, and that's the kind of stuff I'm after. you
Right,
know,
and that's
so.
not a decision that we make locally,
No.
otherwise we
Which
would
is
have
interesting.
a contract.
Yeah, and administrators always start way before, that's the problem, so you need a contract because they start, so.
I have a question, so could we fix the problem by offering them a 15-year, or a 15-month extension going forward at some point in the future, one time to move their date up so that all the dates are in the same month, and do this one time? Is there any, Mr. France isn't here, maybe that's a question for him, but instead of having to go back and pay retroactively and do all that, if we gave them one time.
Are you speaking for like classified and admin or for teachers?
I was thinking for admins to catch them up, instead of having their contracts expire in July, one time, we give them 15 or 16 months and get them up here in October and November with everybody else.
Yeah,
We'll discuss it in policy.
yeah.
Okay.
Sure, we'll take a look at that. I don't know the answer to that, but that's something we could check into.
And I'm not sure legally what they would say as well, we would have to consult, our attorneys and kind of see what they would say about that as well.
Sorry, a little distraction. I just see Goofy and I just want to fix it, so that's.
There's a lot of things we'd like to fix. But our
Thank you.
hands are tied in a lot of areas, so.
I'm done. You done, Roger?
It appears that the board doesn't have more clarifying questions, so let's move on to hearing of patrons.
Sure.
Yeah, just because of the recording. Thank
I know I
you.
didn't really hold back from talking earlier, so I apologize. I will put on the record that this is Jody Sarber, our negotiations chair. I just want to thank admin and the board members that were part of the process this year. I know it took a little bit longer than some years, but thanks for working with us and doing the best we can for the teachers with what we have. I do want to put on the record that and I think we all acknowledge this, that if we want to fix the real problem, we've got to recruit, we've got to get students here, we've got to be creative, and hopefully some of the strategic plan does some of that.
Hopefully.
Because ultimately, otherwise, we're going to be fighting this battle for a long time, and some of us are going to be here for a long time. So anyway, thank you for what we were able to do. And I did want to also just mention with the ECA being in 2 pays, that most corporations will sign those contracts a season ahead of time so that you can be working on a contract through the summer, as most coaches and club sponsors are going to do anyway, just for what it's worth, the logistics. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sarber. Superintendent comments?
I would just echo what Jody just said. I just really appreciate everybody. And 7 a.m. meetings and pretty early, lots of them. And so just thankful that we had a good team on both sides. and don't always agree, but we can agree to disagree and move forward and still be good afterwards. So thank you all that were participants in that. Appreciate it on both sides, so thank you.
School board comments?
I'm glad everyone's happy, so.
Yeah, I'd just like to echo what Mr. Sarber and Dr. Grimaud said. It was super professional, and I just appreciated the time that was given. I think it was like 6:45 a.m. meetings and 6 p.m. meetings, and it was way outside of contract hours, that's for sure. So thank you for that. All right, then we are adjourned. Have a great Friday. Thank you.